Fear has gripped parts of Chicago, a city now at the center of a sweeping immigration crackdown. Since September 2025, Operation Midway Blitz has brought hundreds of federal agents to the city, using tactics that resemble a military invasion. Helicopters and drones fill the skies, while camouflaged officers patrol the streets. The federal government claims these actions are necessary for public safety, boasting over 800 arrests in weeks. DHS insists they're targeting dangerous criminals, but Chicago's sanctuary policies have made the city a battleground. Many locals see the operation as an occupation, not protection. Parents fear sending kids to school, businesses suffer, and panic spreads. Critics argue the raids sweep up anyone who looks like an immigrant, creating widespread fear. This story explores the details of Operation Midway Blitz, the administration's justifications, and the fierce local opposition. We'll hear from those directly affected and examine the true impact of this federal crackdown. Chicago's ordeal raises urgent questions about immigration, public safety, and federal power in American cities. Operation Midway Blitz was the Trump administration's answer to sanctuary cities like Chicago. For years, President Trump promised to crack down on cities that shield undocumented immigrants from deportation. In September 2025, federal agents in tactical gear appeared in public spaces, signaling a new phase in the conflict. DHS announced the operation as a mission to arrest and deport undocumented immigrants with criminal records. Officials framed it as a public safety effort, assuring the public that only violent offenders were targeted. The militarized presence, agents in camouflage patrolling downtown, shocked residents and visitors alike. This show of force was a deliberate message. The federal government would not tolerate defiance from sanctuary cities. President Trump even described Chicago as a training ground for the military, hinting at a broader assertion of federal authority. The operation was about more than immigration. It was about power, control, and making an example of Chicago. The stage was set for a dramatic confrontation between city and federal government. The most dramatic moment came one night on Chicago's South Side. Nearly 300 federal agents stormed a single apartment building, targeting suspected gang members and undocumented immigrants. Drones and a helicopter hovered overhead. Snipers rappelled onto the roof. Residents were caught off guard, the building emptied by dawn. At least 37 people arrested. The operation's scale and tactics shocked the neighborhood, leaving families terrified and confused. The building, once full of families, became a symbol of the new federal approach. News of the raid spread panic through immigrant communities citywide. Activists and lawyers questioned the legality and morality of such aggressive tactics in a residential area. Critics argued the raid punished entire communities, not just criminals. The South Side raid defined Operation Midway Blitz. A stark divide between official goals and the lived reality of residents. For many, it was less about safety and more about sending a message. The scars of that night lingered long after the agents left. Operation Midway Blitz was marked by military-style tactics and equipment. Drones buzzed overhead, surveilling neighborhoods and making residents feel constantly watched. Helicopters became a nightly presence, their noise signaling the threat of raids. Agents in camouflage and military-style rifles patrolled public spaces, blurring the line between police and soldiers. The sight of armed, uniformed agents in downtown Chicago was jarring for locals and tourists alike. Critics saw this as deliberate intimidation, designed to project overwhelming power. The federal government escalated further, deploying 100 National Guard troops to protect federal buildings. This move deepened the sense of militarization and occupation. The combination of drones, helicopters, and camouflaged agents transformed parts of Chicago into zones of fear. For many, the city felt less like home and more like a conflict zone. The message was clear: federal authority would be enforced by force if necessary. The Trump administration insists Operation Midway Blitz is about public safety, not targeting immigrants at random. DHS claims the operation focuses on undocumented immigrants with serious criminal records, gang members, violent offenders, and repeat criminals. Officials argue sanctuary city policies force federal agents to conduct large-scale raids, making their job harder and riskier. Supporters, including some local politicians, see the agents as heroes restoring order. They believe aggressive tactics are justified to remove dangerous individuals from the streets. the administration highlights crimes committed by undocumented immigrants to justify the crackdown. By focusing on criminal records, they seek public support for their actions. For them, any disruption is a small price for long-term safety. Operation Midway Blitz, in their view, is a necessary defense of the rule of law. Chicago and Illinois leaders have fiercely opposed Operation Midway Blitz. Governor J.B. Pritzker called federal agents jackbooted thugs, accusing them of terrorizing families and hurting businesses. Mayor Brandon Johnson condemned the militarization of the city, rejecting Trump's claim that Chicago was a training ground. Both leaders framed the operation as an attack on the city's values and autonomy. They challenged the claim that only violent criminals were targeted, citing data showing most detainees had no criminal convictions. Officials argued the raids tore families apart and relied on racial profiling. The city reaffirmed its sanctuary policies, refusing to be intimidated. Public statements from the governor and mayor became rallying cries for resistance. Chicago's leadership made it clear federal agents were not welcome, and the city would stand with its immigrant communities. The political battle lines were drawn, setting the stage for ongoing conflict. For Chicago's immigrant neighborhoods, daily life has changed dramatically. The threat of raids has created a climate of fear. Parents keep children home, businesses see fewer customers, and streets are eerily quiet. Residents describe waking to helicopters and armed agents in their hallways. Lawyers and activists say many arrested were not violent criminals, and even U.S. citizens have been wrongly detained. Families are left in the dark about loved ones' whereabouts. The presence of camouflaged agents and military equipment is a constant, unnerving reminder of the crackdown. This atmosphere of intimidation erodes trust in law enforcement. People are less likely to report crimes or seek help, making neighborhoods less safe. The operation, meant to restore order, has instead brought insecurity and alienation. Many now rely on neighbors, not authorities, for safety. The crackdown's legacy is a deep sense of fear and mistrust. Chicago's communities have responded with organized resistance. Grassroots groups formed People's Patrols, volunteers monitoring neighborhoods for ICE activity and warning residents of impending raids. Activists mobilized across the city and suburbs, educating people about their rights and distributing flyers door to door. They remind residents, you don't have to open your door without a judicial warrant. Protests outside detention centers have become daily events, sometimes met with force by ICE agents. These demonstrations show the community's strength and refusal to accept the federal operation quietly. The resistance is about more than protest. It's about building networks of safety and support. Organizers challenge the narrative that raids are about public safety, framing them as attacks on their communities. This movement proves that, even against overwhelming federal power, people are not powerless. By standing together, they defend immigrant rights and refuse to be intimidated. Grassroots activism has become a powerful counterforce to Operation Midway Blitz. Chicago is now a city divided, caught in a national battle over immigration and federal power. The Trump administration claims success, pointing to hundreds of arrests and a safer city. Local leaders and activists see only fear, trauma, and families torn apart. Critics argue the operation targeted people based on ethnicity, not threat, and eroded trust in law enforcement. The aggressive tactics have deepened political and social divides. As of October 2025, federal agents remain and protests continue. The future is uncertain. Federal enforcement shows no sign of stopping, and city leaders vow to resist. Chicago has become a flashpoint in America's struggle over immigration and local autonomy. The story of Operation Midway Blitz is still unfolding, shaping the city's and the nation's identity. The questions raised here will echo far beyond Chicago's borders.